Welcome back to the last few hundred meters of the third and concluding chapter in our trilogy, where we now have arrived in our new episode, right at the frontier gate which is home to the mighty Bản Giốc Waterfall, and which will take us straight into the unique wonders of the Trung Khánh district of the Chao Bang province. The road from Nha Giang in the Ha Quang district was truly amazing as it winded through limestone peaks and emerald valleys, and carrying us deeper into the beating heart of the Non Nuoc UNESCO Global Geopark here in the province of Chao Bang. In this area, the land itself seems to breathe, as its karst cliffs rising like ancient sentinels, and its rivers carving paths that whisper of centuries long gone by. And during our ride, every turn revealed a new and amazing landscape, both untamed and timeless, a true frontier where Vietnam's spirit collides with the edge of China, a boundary rich in symphony of stones, wild waters, and endless misty skies. And here we already checked ourselves in at Land's Homestay, a guest house which will be our accommodation for the next few days. This homestay of our choice is nestled here in the quiet village of Kio Tang, in the commune of Dam Thuy, where Land's Homestay stands as both a welcoming retreat and as a living museum of the Thay heritage. At first glance, its sloping tiled roof and sturdy wooden beams reveal the unmistakable silhouette of a traditional Thay stilt house. Yet step inside, and you discover a space that has gracefully evolved, and retaining its ancestral soul while opening its doors to travelers from around the world. The Thay people, which are one of Vietnam's largest ethnic minorities, have long built their homes on stilts, raising them above the earth to guard against floods and dampness. Beneath the house, animals were once sheltered, while the elevated living quarters offered warmth, safety, and a good vantage point over the vast fields. These houses were more than architecture, they were real symbols of harmony that goes along with the nature, designed to breathe with the seasons and to gather families around the central hearth of the house. Land's Homestay perfectly preserves all these essences, with the polished wooden floors which creak softly underfoot, and echoing generations of footsteps that has already gone by here. The communal space, once the heart of family life, now hosts guests who share meals of sticky rice, grilled river fish, and forest vegetables, prepared with the same care the Thay families have practiced for centuries. The transformation into a homestay has introduced modern comforts, private rooms, bathrooms, and internet, but the spirit of the house remains unchanged, as it is still a place of large gathering, endless storytelling, and unbreakable connection. And beyond the homestay's walls, the landscape of Chao Bang unfolds in a not less breathtakingly fashion. Just a short journey away lies the Bản Giốc Waterfall, its cascades thundering across the border with China, and then there is the Nguam Ngao cave, where limestone formations shimmer like frozen waves. Villages nearby still practice age-old crafts, such as the blacksmiths of Phuc Son, whose hammers ring out in rhythm with traditions passed down through generations. Guests who stay here at Land's Homestay often find themselves drawn into these rhythms. Whether by joining a weaving demonstration, listening to folk songs, or witnessing the Long Tong festival, when the Thay communities are celebrate the opening of the fields with prayers for prosperity. What makes Land's Homestay remarkable is not only its preservation of the unique Thay architecture, but also for its role as a bridge between the past and the present. For the Thay, the stilt house embodies values of family unity, respect for ancestors, and balance with the natural world. For visitors like us, it offers a rare chance to live inside those values, to wake to the sound of roosters beneath the house, to watch mist curl over the mountains, and to feel, if only for a few days, to be part of a tradition that has endured for centuries. Lan herself, like many hosts here in the province of Chao Bang, has reimagined her ancestral home not as a relic but as a living space of exchange. And in doing so, she ensures that the Thay house continues to breathe, not only with the life of her family, but also with the stories of travelers like us, who carry its memory far beyond the highlands and across the world. Now, it is also noteworthy to mention that Land's Homestay sits in one of the most striking corners here in the district of Trung Khánh. As just steps away the Quay Sơn River is flowing along its way, it is a stream which is mostly calm but very vital because it nourishes the entire valley. The river is also central to local life, as the farmers rely on it to irrigate their crops, while for the kids it is a great playground, and for us visitors, we will find it a peaceful place to walk and talk or just to sit and relax. Along the river, we can also see the bamboo water wheels, which are ingenious devices that are built entirely by hand. These wheels scoop the water from the river and channel it into the rice paddies. A technique that has been used by the Thay for many generations, as their slow, steady rotation is both practical and symbolical, and representing the rhythm of their peaceful rural life. The homestay is also framed by the dramatic karst hills, which are limestone formations that rise steeply from the valley floor, and also shape the farming patterns of the village, as the flat land along the river is mostly used for rice and corn, while the slopes support vegetable plots and fruit trees.
Need all the time.
Good morning to a new day, unfortunately not as sunny and beautiful as yesterday, but never mind, we are finally on our way to the waterfall of Bản Giốc. The route we are riding now will lead us out of the Keo Tang hamlet, and across the Quay Sơn River that runs along the border with China, and then merging into the DT-206, which is the provincial road we came from. Since we left the township of Trùng Khánh in our last episode, it is the main road that connects with the villages here in the commune of Dam Thuy, and also right to the point where we are heading now. As we can see here too, the scenery is largely dominated by karst hills and farmland. And it will take us about 20 minutes of riding, as the road will lead us directly to the waterfall of Bản Giốc, which is one of Vietnam's most famous natural landmarks and newest upcoming tourist attraction. The waterfall is a multi-tiered cascade located on the Quay Sơn River itself, and right at the border with China. The waterfall straddles the Quay Sơn River, or in Chinese the Guay Chuan Ha, which forms part of the border between Vietnam's Cao Bang province and China's autonomous region of Guangxi Zhuang. On the Vietnamese side, the falls are divided into the main cascade, known as the Thoc Chin, and the subordinate cascade, named the Thoc Phu, while in the Chinese texts they often group them all together under the name of Detian Waterfalls. Now, I was wondering why there are two names, and I have been told that because the waterfall lies directly on the international boundary, and that each country has its own naming tradition, and in the tourism and official documents, it is often referred to as the Bản Giốc, Detian Falls, which is acknowledging both sides of the border.
Bay lôi. Bay lôi. Grab. Grab. Bay ban lôi. ใช่ I don't believe this. But they have the traditional water wheels here, and protected by the UNESCO.
Another interesting observation I made today is that here in the highlands of the Cao Bang province, the older generation of the Thay people carry with them a remarkable linguistic heritage. Many of them can still converse in the Thai language or closely related Thai dialects, which is a skill that reveals centuries of cultural connections, which is reaching far across the southeastern parts of Asia. I also learned that the Thay language belongs to the family of the Thai, or also called the Kra-Dai language, which is a vast network of languages that is stretching from southern China into Laos and Thailand. And within this language family, the Thais share their roots with the Thais of Thailand, the Laotians of Laos, the Zhuang of Guangxi, and last but not least the Nungs, who are also located here in the northern parts of Vietnam. This shared ancestry clearly explains why the older Thay villagers often recognize words, phrases, and rhythms from the Thai language speech, which is not a foreign tongue to them, but a cousin's language, so to say. Historically, the Thai-speaking peoples migrated southward from China over 1,000 years ago, and settling in the fertile valleys and the river basins. The Thay remained in the northern parts of Vietnam, while others moved further into Laos and Thailand. And amazingly, despite the vast distances, and the time passed, the languages retained their striking similarities, as for generations, cross-border trade, intermarriage, and festivals kept these ancient ties alive. Especially here in villages which are located near the frontier, it was common for elders to switch between the languages of Thay, Nung, and even Thai. It was all depending on who they were talking to. For the older generation, this multilingual ability was practical, as farmers trading across the border families attending regional markets, and communities celebrating shared agricultural festivals, all of them benefited from their common linguistic thread. And so, being able to speak Thai, or understanding it, was part of belonging to a wider Thai cultural sphere that transcended far beyond the political boundaries. Today, unfortunately, the younger Thay people are more likely to speak Vietnamese as their dominant language, with less exposure to the Thai language or their related dialects. Yet in homestays like Lands, here in Keo Tang, visitors may still hear the elders slip into the Thai language expressions, and recalling a time when language flowed freely across valleys and rivers. Their voices are real living evidence of how the Thai people, scattered across Southeast Asia, and remain connected through words as much as through traditions. As this linguistic bridge is not just about communication, but also about identity, as it clearly shows how the Thay, though they rooted in northern Vietnam, are part of a much larger story, one of migration, adaptation, and enduring cultural bonds that links the highlands of Chao Bang to the plains of Laos, Thailand and far beyond these countries. And while we are now passing the hamlet of Khu Mong, it is here where the China border is only a few meters away, as the Quay Sơn River itself marks the part of the frontier. Since the waterway flowing directly between Vietnam's Chao Bang province and China's Guangxi region, and when looking at the hills on my left, you can clearly see that on the other side of the river, the karst mountains already belonging to China.
What waterfall?
No motor go beach. No motor go beach.
Go this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
This closeness of course shapes the daily life here, as the villagers on both sides share similar traditions, especially among the Thay in Vietnam and the Zhuang in China, who are linguistically and culturally related. These farmers use the same bamboo water wheels to irrigate their fields, and if we go to the markets here at the border, we can often see the goods, foods, and crafts which are exchanged under each other. Moreover, I learned that the tourism business here is also reflecting this interaction, as visitors here on the Vietnamese side call the waterfalls Bản Giốc, while across the river, the Chinese tourists call them the Detian Cascades. But despite the international boundary, the communities remain connected through their similar language, their trade, and their shared heritage, which makes this borderland a place where culture is still flowing as freely as the water in the river itself. You might have noticed too, they asked us to park our motorbikes and cars at the parking lot of the Cash San Suon Hotel, and use their paid, electro tuk-tuk service, for the last kilometers coming here to the ticket counter and entrance gate of the waterfall. And so here we are, and finally we made it to the Bản Giốc waterfall. Now hopefully it is as spectacular as we have been told. What many visitors do not realize, is that the waterfall's flow is not entirely natural, as the Quay Sơn River is regulated upstream by a hydropower dam in China, which directly affects how much water reaches the falls. During the rainy season, precisely from May to September, the river runs high and the waterfall is consistently powerful, but now in the dry season, the water level can drop a lot, and of course, the spectacle very much depends on how much water the dam releases. Local residents explained to me that the best time to see the waterfall at full strength in the dry months is usually in the morning time from 10 to noon, when the dam gates are opened and water surges downstream. Outside of these hours, the waterfall can appear smaller, with much reduced flow, so please remember that this timing has become an informal schedule for us visitors, who want to experience the waterfall also in the dry season at its most impressive state. The situation also highlights how human engineering and natural beauty is intersecting here at the Bản Giốc, Detian waterfall. The dam not only provides electricity and irrigation upstream, but it also shapes the experience of one of Southeast Asia's most famous borderland attractions. And for travelers, knowing this detail adds context, as the waterfall is not only a natural wonder, but also part of a cross-border system where water, tourism, and livelihoods are closely interconnected with each other. Standing now in front of the Bản Giốc Waterfall Park, the scale of the falls becomes immediately impressive. From the entrance to the viewing area, the sound intensified and the landscape opened into a broad space designed for the steady flow of visitors. The pathways along the riverbank lead to several viewpoints where the layout of the falls becomes clear. The main cascade lies entirely on the Vietnamese side, and dropping over limestone steps, while the larger shared section spans the border, with China's viewing platforms directly opposite. This makes Bản Giốc one of the few major waterfalls where two countries face each other across the same natural feature. We can also notice the small stalls which sell local honey, dried fruits, herbal teas, and handicrafts from the nearby Thay and Nung villages, and these vendors rely heavily on tourism, making the waterfall an important economic hub for surrounding communities. The viewing decks, safety barriers, and maintained walkways show how conservation and tourism management shape the experience. There is also the Vietnamese border stone which is inside this park and reminding us that this landscape here is shared. It marks the exact point where Vietnam ends and China begins, since the main waterfall is a jointly owned natural feature divided by the river channel between Chao Bang and Guangxi. From the platforms, the contrast between the two sides becomes even more clear. China's Detian scenic area features a much larger visitor center, shuttle routes, and commercial zones, which reflecting significant investment and high domestic tourism. Where on the Vietnamese side, the main focus is to preserve the rural character of the Dam Thuy commune and supporting local communities through homestays and small family-run stalls. So, both sides offer different experiences, yet they remain connected by the same river, the same waterfall, and a shared history of Thai-speaking peoples who have lived in this borderland for centuries. And this makes the Bản Giốc, Detian waterfall not just a border, but a meeting point of two tourism models, two administrative systems, and two communities who depend very much on the same waterway. Leaving the Bản Giốc Waterfall Park now behind us. The road begins to climb steeply towards the ridge which is overlooking the valley, as the sound of the waterfalls fades with each meter, replaced by the quieter rhythm of the countryside, as well as the loud engine noise of our motorbike cranking up the hill in its lowest gear to our next destination, which is perched here on the hillside, and is none less than the first large Buddhist temple ever built so close to the Vietnam-China border, and named the Chua Phat Tich Truc Lam Bản Giốc. The road up to the temple winds through patches of forest, and from here, the landscape opens in a much different way. Suddenly the karst mountains rise so sharply on both sides and forming a natural-like amphitheater around the valley. The temple's architecture gradually comes into view with its curved roofs, stone staircases, and wooden halls which are somehow blending into the surrounding limestone cliffs. I was told that the temple was built in 2014, and designed not only as a place of worship but also as a cultural landmark symbolizing peace and spiritual presence in this border region. Its location seems deliberately on high ground to overlook the entire Bản Giốc, Detian waterfall system, yet close enough to remain connected to the local communities which is spread out below in the valley. The atmosphere here is different as the bustle of the waterfall park gives way to a quieter, more contemplative space, where prayer flags flutter softly in the wind, and the scent of incense drifts from the main hall filling the air with its aromatic flower. Stepping inside the temple complex, we can feel that the atmosphere shifts immediately as the interiors follow the traditional Truc Lam Zen style, which is simple, warm, and deeply Vietnamese. Here wooden beams, carved pillars, and clay tiles give the halls a grounded, earthy feel, like as if the building has grown out of the mountain itself. In the main worship hall, statues are arranged according to the Truc Lam lineage, illuminated by natural light filtering through wooden lattice windows. Incense drifts slowly through the space, creating a calm, meditative atmosphere. One side of the hall is dedicated to Nung Tri Chau, an important historical figure of the local Nung people, reflecting the temple's role in honoring the cultural identity of the border region. Across the courtyard, the bell tower houses a large bronze bell, while the opposite tower holds a traditional wooden drum. These structures are semi-open, allowing the sound to travel freely across the valley. Smaller interior rooms are used for chanting and meditation, designed with minimal decoration to keep the focus on silence and reflection. The temple's interiors are not grand or overwhelming. They are intentionally modest, blending seamlessly with the surrounding karst mountains, and together, they create a peaceful space that overlooks the dramatic waterfall below, offering a quiet counterpoint to the forceful energy of the mighty Bản Giốc Waterfall. From the temple's upper terrace, the view is extraordinary. The waterfall appears small from this height, but its full structure becomes visible. Both the Vietnamese and the Chinese side is framed by the dramatic karst formations, with the Quay Sơn River winding through the valley like a silver ribbon, and marking the border yet connecting the landscape in a single continuous line. Here, the contrast between the two sides of the waterfall feels less pronounced. From above, the infrastructure, the border markers, and the separate tourism systems fade into the background. What remains is the shared geography of the mountains, the river, and the waterfall that has shaped life in this region for centuries. Standing up here at the temple, it becomes clear why this site was chosen, because it offers not only a spiritual refuge but also a vantage point that ties together everything we have seen so far: the natural beauty, the borderland dynamics, and the cultural heritage of the Thay, the Nung, and the Zhuang communities, who all call this valley their beloved home. And as we now wind down the serpentine road from the temple, the valley slowly rises again, and the patchwork of rice terraces, the clusters of stilt houses, and the quiet rhythm of the daily life returning to our view, it is hard to imagine that this peaceful landscape once endured a very different kind of silence. Let us talk a bit about what I also learned from the locals here, a story so sad not many speak about it anymore. It was about the years of the American War, and who would have thought that even in this remote border region, far from the major cities, where the conflict may have seemed very distant at first. But the war reached even these mountains, and many young men from the Nung, the Thay, and other ethnic communities were recruited to fight in the North Vietnamese forces. Some volunteered out of duty, others were called up as part of the national mobilization, but either way, the effect on the valley was extremely sad and profound. Elders still recall that by the late 1960s, entire hamlets were left with almost no adult men, and the fields were tended by women, children, and the elderly. Grandfathers carried the heavy plows that their sons once pulled, mothers harvested rice with infants strapped to their backs, and even the teenagers took on responsibilities far beyond their years. Life continued, but it did so under a heavy weight of uncertainty, as every family was waiting for news, every household fearing the knock on the door, a tap that might bring the sad letter, instead of the eagerly long-awaited happy homecoming. It is well known here that many of the soldiers from this region never returned, as some fell in battles far to the south, and others succumbed to illness, hunger, or the brutal conditions of the long marches. Their names are deeply remembered in their family altars, in faded photographs tucked behind incense bowls, and in the stories which are told during the festivals when the community gathers to honor their ancestors and the lost ones. Sadly, even for many of those who survived, the journey back was often as difficult as the war itself, as they returned to villages changed by their absence, to children who barely recognized them, to parents who had aged decades in just a few years. And yet, despite of all of these difficulties, the valley stood up and rebuilt itself, slowly, quietly, and with the same resilience that has carried these communities through centuries of hardship along this ever-shifting borderland. And for me, now knowing this sad history adds a completely new layer to this landscape. As the tranquility we see today is not just the natural beauty, no, it is the hard-won peace, which was shaped by sacrifice, memory, and the enduring strength of these people here, who regard this valley as the very heart of their own world. As our journey through Chao Bang now draws to a close, it is impossible not to feel humbled by the sheer grandeur of this often overlooked corner of Vietnam. These valleys, carved by rivers older than our memories, and these mountains rising like ancient guardians along the border with China, hold a beauty that reveals itself slowly, not in spectacle alone, but in the quiet dignity of the land and the very people who have shaped it. To all of you who have joined us across this trilogy, which ended here with this add-on episode visiting the Bản Giốc Waterfall, thank you so much. Your presence has made this journey far more meaningful, as together, we have crossed mountain passes, listened to the stories of the valley and its people, and stood before some of the most extraordinary landscapes Vietnam has to offer. Creating this add-on episode, tracing our path through Chao Bang, has truly been a profound privilege to share with you. But once again, our adventure does not end here, as ahead lies now the road toward the town of That Kỳ, nestled in the Trang Dinh district of the Lang Son province. It will be a new chapter, a new landscape, and a new stories waiting to be told. As usual, we look forward to having you with us once again, as we continue this journey, and discovering the very heart of northern Vietnam one step, one village, and one story at a time.